I think the biggest and best decision I've made in the last few years in my life was to switch to a flip phone. And I think that everyone can find the same joy that I have found in doing so. And let me tell you why. We as a society have fought for freedom and equality for so long, but now that entertainment has numbed and blinded us, seems like we've really abandoned that pursuit and just willingly handed over our freedoms to tech companies. Why are we paying with currency, time, our cognitive agency to help tech companies fill the pockets of their billionaire bosses and shareholders? They have convinced us that outsourcing the very things that make us human will make our lives easier, when in reality, they are just tightening their control and surveillance over us. After doing an experiment in spring where I switched to a flip phone for a week, that week turned into months just because I enjoyed having a flip phone so much. And then after a few months, I switched back to my iPhone, citing logistical necessity. My Nokia 2780 felt like a tool, which is exactly what a phone should be. When I went back to my iPhone, I felt very different and sad. It felt like walking back into a dark room after running through a wildflower filled meadow. My iPhone just felt like a leech I had to pull off my skin over and over and over again. And I tried so many different things to make my iPhone more livable for myself. I deleted a bunch of apps. I used ScreenZen, an app that blocks apps, to limit my usage. And I even tethered it to my wall to simulate a landline effect. But nothing felt quite as peaceful as having my flip phone. I found myself reminiscing about the time that I had my flip phone, the same way I sometimes reminisce about the simplicity of my childhood. So I decided randomly one night that I could just choose the way I wanted to live, and I just wanted to live with a flip phone. So I popped my SIM card out of my iPhone and put it back in my flip phone permanently. And this decision felt so good. I'm proposing that this modality of relating to technology be called digital utilitarianism. The idea of digital utilitarianism is basically the application of the idea of preference utilitarianism, which is a very old idea, to the use of digital technology. The general gist is that I believe that using technology for beyond just necessary and practical tool uses can put our society at risk for exploiting the vices of both individuals and communities and infringing on both our right to privacy and our own freedoms. I will leave this underdefined and underexplained on purpose just for the sake of time, but if you are curious, please read my Substack article that I have linked down below. As more and more days go by without my iPhone, I realize that I have fallen victim to a false sense of necessity that is created to perpetuate dependence and make us feel like we are incapable of existing without the supercomputer in our pockets. The convenience-based systems offered to us through smartphones feel almost as if they are generating incompetence, almost like they are offering us an unnecessary prosthetic while sawing off our healthy leg. Coddling us into complacency is so profitable for tech companies that while we're busy scrolling, they are cementing systems of dependence permanently into society. They are starting to turn the hamster wheel that initially we happily jumped into faster and faster. We create systems that don't really give us a choice of whether to have a smartphone or not. Examples of this would be like QR codes to get into events or to access tickets, having to use messengers like WhatsApp and Telegram to contact people because international restrictions on texting are a thing, or apps that make you clock into work or just that you really need in order to go through your day to day life. We have to insist on systems and options that don't necessitate the use of a smartphone so that we can have a freedom of choice on what technologies we want to use. Being dependent on something owned by a private company is really detrimental to our democracy because we never chose the people who are in charge of tech companies and they are dictating so much of our lives. Sometimes when I tell people I have a smartphone, they look at me as if I'm denouncing something so necessary and as if I'm doing something so radical, as if I said that running water wasn't really necessary. Humanity has existed without smartphones for so long. If we could go all that time without smartphones, I believe that we are more than capable, especially with modern technologies, to create systems that don't rely on these predatory technologies to help us go through our day to day lives. Just because nearly everyone has an iPhone doesn't make this concept non radical. In fact, I think it's much more bizarre than we've even ever acknowledged. I believe everything we truly need we can achieve on a flip phone. You are not helping yourself by having a smartphone. As Dostoevsky says, your worst sin is that you have betrayed and destroyed yourself for nothing. So, this is why I switched to a flip phone. I like using the analogy of a house to understand my move out of my iPhone because I feel like we've created almost this whole digital world and realm, and we have fragmented our own personas and created a secondary persona that almost occupies this online realm. It feels really good to reintegrate all of the fragments of yourself that you've lost on the internet and put yourself back together. Something I really loved about having my flip phone was how cohesive and whole the rhythm of my day felt and how long my days felt. You can hear the hum of synchronicity that you hear when you're a child. You just have so much brain capacity to be present and observe everything around you that you feel like your own time is a function of yourself rather than you being a function of this chaotic cycle of time. When I had my iPhone, I felt almost as if I was burning holes in this day cycle and then trying to almost chaotically, in the space of my memory, try to tie these fragments of time together into this messy, ugly, long strand. Following that day's cohesion makes me feel whole and organized and very much grounded in my own person. Another big part of moving out of the online house, if you will, is cutting all my tethers to the online world, such as deleting things that I feel the need to check often that really aren't necessary, like Pinterest and Instagram. I'm really teetering on the edge of deleting Instagram, and I'm really not sure if I'm going to do it or not. To sever these ties completely, I'm going to try to make as much of my media physical as possible. This means getting a CD player and really getting into collecting music that is very special and important to me. And I think that listening to a lot less music will make all the music I select feel much more special, and I can actually learn the lyrics of the songs and feel really connected to the artists I listen to. It also just feels so much better to own something rather than to keep paying a subscription to a weird conglomerate. I'm also going to get a paper compass and a map, not because I necessarily need it, because my flip phone does have Google Maps, but just because I think it'll be fun to try to get around New York City with a paper map and compass. In the end, it just feels really good to dictate what you consume and to kind of be a bouncer for your brain. Speaking of consumption, I feel like in the current moment, we really need to step back and radically look at our habits of consumption in the Western world and really restructure how we look at consumption. And I think that this is impossible without examining the sources of our desires to consume, which are ads that we are just so flooded with when we open social media, from both very obvious ads directly sponsored by companies and organic content from influencers. We just cannot be consuming the way that we are consuming right now, considering how finite our resources are. And I'm not even going to get into the climate and human rights and pollution aspects of it. A flip phone makes it really easy to minimize the amount of ads and marketing that you see. When I minimized my ads, my sense of material inadequacy, which I've been plagued with for years, and which I feel like is the driving force of consumption, has almost completely disappeared from my life. And I feel like all of my shopping impulses come from a genuine practical need that I encounter in my day to day life. I'm such a lover of fashion, and I have always kind of had this itch to shop, so seeing it almost completely go away kind of surprised me a lot. And I still feel like I can exercise that part of myself with the clothing I have. It's just about how I wear it rather than what I have. It would also, I think, in this moment be hypocritical for me not to mention that my own videos on YouTube are monetized. And I would actually love to change this and not monetize any of my content. But to make that vision a reality, I would need some of your support on Substack. as an unemployed grad student. I will also be very selective with brand deals going forward. Not that I've done a lot, but you just won't be seeing a lot of that on here either. In conclusion, is having a flip phone a lot less convenient? Absolutely, but I would rather be slightly inconvenienced and actually enjoy my life so much. I've truly found so much joy in this switch that all the inconveniences are so worth it and are honestly so manageable and really easy to work around. And it's almost its own adventure. I think a lot of life is suffering, and being able to choose the way you suffer is almost the very essence of expressing yourself. So by choosing this as my way of suffering, I eliminate another way of suffering, which comes from having an iPhone that I would really just not like to include in my life. I love my low tech lifestyle, and I really would love for others to feel the same joy I felt from making the switch. So if you are at all curious about switching, or have been thinking about it, or are already a flip phone user, which I've met already so many people in New York City who are, so there are a lot of us. And the more people join this movement and switch and step back and boycott these predatory tech systems, the more fun it's going to be to participate in a world where we're calling each other and human connection is blossoming. And we are in this renaissance of localized communities and really appreciating media and stepping back from consumerism and focusing in on very unmaterialistic values again. I actually am going to make a group chat on Substack that you can join if you are a flip phoner or flip phone curious and you care to refer to yourself as a digital utilitarianist or just learn about or join the movement. This change is so exciting to me. The potential of a world where a lot of people switch and step back from technology to me is so inspiring. Let that glass bastard be an unpleasant mirage of your past, and comment more slurs that you think of for your iPhone. I'm ready to hear them. If you want to subscribe, I'll be just navigating a lot of scenarios where it seems very difficult to have a flip phone or nearly impossible, and I'll be showing you guys that it's actually very possible and so, so joyful. Thank you for watching this video, and thank you for listening. I will see you again so soon. Bye.